Hi there and welcome to Red Risks. My name is Sunny Gopal. Now this is a live event and of course things can and they do go wrong. Those gremlins are not too far away. So please bear with us if we do hit any sticky spots as we try and resolve them. And just to let you know that these shows run twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. The Tuesday show is at 7 p.m. in the evening, UK time. The Thursday show is on at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, UK time. The Thursday shows have a campfire setting and it involves the stream team, which are a group of good friends and colleagues from across the world who are risk and safety practitioners. We open up the Pandora's box and discuss lots of interesting topics. And of course, if you missed the show, which is always possible, we have our own YouTube channel, which is just Red Risks. Subscribe to that and I can notify you through there. And also you can watch the past recordings with our guests and also with the stream team. Of course, with it being a live stream, it's a great opportunity to connect with like-minded individuals out there. We have a live chat feature, so you can always ask us tough questions and also put some of our guests on the spot. Let's get engaged. So, ready? Here we go.
Hello, everyone. Hello, the world. And welcome to our Thursday Red Risk live show. And remember, this show is about learning. It's about sharing and connecting. Should you have any questions, guys, we do have our live chat. Should you have any questions, please feel free to comment, ask questions, myself or my teammates. Today, we have a very special show and we have a very special guest. In this show, we will talk about human capital, sustainability, and the role of occupational health and safety in the aspect of the human capital. Before we start, let me invite my mates and friends from the stream team.
Hi.
From Mexico.
Hello.
Hi, Tanner.
Hi.
From Dubai. And today, talking about human capital, we have a special guest. Could you guys mute yourself for a minute because I have some noises. Yeah, thank you. And our special guest today is Louise Hosking. Louise is President-elect of IOSH. Hi, Louise. Let's bring Louise to the show.
Hi, everybody. Really pleased to be back here and nice to see you. Good morning. Hello, lunchtime, wherever it is in the world.
Welcome, Louise. So nice to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us. So before we start, is that okay if I introduce you, Louise?
Yeah, of course.
So Louise is a risk management leader with almost 3 decades of experience working alongside organizations from micro to FTSE, supporting them to transform their approach and perception of occupational health and safety at every level and across supply chains. Louise worked as a regulator after graduating from Nottingham Trent University, gaining significant court experience. She has worked for the cooperative and prior to creating her business was head of environmental health and safety for Savills. Property and asset management have remained a specialist area. Her IOSH consultancy, Hosking Associates, was established in 2005. Her team guide businesses along a journey to see IOSH and high ethical values as enabler for success. Louise is a regular contributor to a range of publications and on social media platforms, commentating not only on positive IOSH values, I do remember POSH, but also inclusion, social value, and the challenges faced by SMEs as they grow. In October 2020, Louise was elected to the role of President-elect of IOSH. My congratulations, and will become president in 2021. Welcome, Louise.
Thank you so much.
I remember our last meeting in December, and following our last conversation, you brought up an interesting topic related to human capital. And I think that the best way to start our conversation today with a simple question. Human capital, what does it mean? Maybe you can give us an overview. human capital, sustainability. We have so many questions. Maybe it's a time to go to the simple questions and simple answers.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeanette, for that excellent introduction. So human capital, I'm excited by this, and thank you for that introduction, because it really does tie in a lot of the personal values that I have around ethical values, ethical, how do we encourage business to have that strong moral background, really? So that's why it's always interested me. And I've pulled together
slides. Do you want to put the slides? Okay.
Yeah, just to give a little bit of an introduction into what we're talking about here, because lots of occupational safety and health professionals that I meet are not quite sure where this kind of fits in with where they're working and how they contribute. So I wanted to kind of pull these slides together just as a kind of story to start that conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm going to start. It's not too long, so it's not going to be death by PowerPoint.
Don't worry. I think it's important. Yeah, please share.
So we're going to start off then with just talking a little bit about the definition of sustainability. And I think quite often when we talk about sustainability, people automatically think of the environment. But I love this definition of sustainability, which is from the UN. So it's meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their needs. So sustainability is a lot more than the environment. And if we can flick it over to the next slide, Sunny's in the background. So we've got this balance between planet, profit, and people. And we can't have one without the other. So I think as occupational safety and health professionals, we're used to people saying, health and safety is my number one priority. True. But my answer to that is that it should be one of your highest values, because these things have to be in balance to have a sustainable organization. And that leads on to my next slide, if we can flip over. I'm quite enjoying this. Sunny's in the background.
Thank you for pressing the button, Sunny.
So now we're starting to look at where human capital fits into this. So we've taken the planet, profit, people piece, and we're starting to look at that in a bit more of a broader concept. So when organizations are thinking about sustainability, they're going to think about the 5 capitals. So human capital is one of those. So natural capital is the one that I think everybody can kind of get their head around. So that's looking at the environment and the impact of pollution and the impact that has on our environment and around us, which is why it's kind of around the outside. If we think about social capital, that's to do with our common values, it's to do with trust, it's to do with development. So that's the social piece. Our manufactured capital is around infrastructure and process. Without proper process, we can't deliver out, a business cannot be sustainable. You have to have that good, strong process behind it. Financial capital, I think everybody kind of gets. So it's the money piece. So it's profit. About money, it's about cash flow, it's about our assets, if you like. And then human capital is what we're talking about today. So the human capital piece, you can start to see how those, leaders of organizations are going to look at those 5 capitals, and human capital is one element of that. So if we flip that over to the next slide, Sunny, we can start to think about human capital and what this means. So interestingly enough, when you Google human capital, these are the kind of phrases that come up, okay? And it is that kind of intangible asset or quality that's to do with the economic value of a worker's experience and skills. Okay, so it includes things like education, it includes things like training, intelligence, skills, health, and other things that employers value, like loyalty, punctuality, and all of those things have a massive impact on improved performance and well-being of an entire organization. So they're massively important. But interestingly enough, what I find fascinating about this is that when you Google this type of stuff, health and safety isn't in there.
True.
So our role as safety professionals is thinking about where we can pull this into human capital. And, you know, you've got to think about where we are at the moment. And if you take our kind of healthcare systems as an example, you can see how where if human capital starts to fall out of balance, we cannot deliver that service. You know, there is no such thing as a people tree. We cannot grow nurses and doctors on trees. You know, this is about our moral, you know, it ties in with our moral values, if you like.
Ethics.
And it's kind of a fundamental part of who we are. Yet it is this intangible asset that is very difficult for us to measure or for us to kind of understand. So if we can just go on to the next slide, Sunny. So this is looking at, you know, what is the capitals approach? So tying this in with capitals. So it's looking at impact and dependencies. So it's highlighting our dependency on nature and people, which is going to be critical, and how those alter between them. Then we've got our systems approach, which is on the other side of the slide. And right in the middle, we've got about measurement and value. And when we're talking to business, they understand measurement and value. And I think if you talk to any average occupational safety and health professional, you know, we all have really difficult conversations, don't we? And I think for business, it's very hard for them to understand and measure the true value of what we do because of these intangibles that I've been talking about. Sometimes they're really hard to understand, you know, how do we understand that value and how do we put that value into the businesses that we're influencing, which I'm going to unpack a little bit more as we go through this. So the next slide, Sunny, you're doing very well in the background here, Sunny, is an example of something that we can almost measure. We can understand this. You know, this is an example of something that we can measure. So we know, as an example, if a business invests in training its health and safety workforce, which is part of, you know, well-trained workforce is part of that human capital, we can measure the time and the effort and the cost associated with that training. So we can do that. And then we can also come back and we can measure and look at the impact that that training has had within the organization. So hopefully the business will achieve a reduction in risks of injury at work, and we can potentially measure that piece as well. And there will be another added value to that we will have a cost reduction maybe in absenteeism, an improvement of workers and their well-being. So this is an example of a pathway where potentially we can start to measure some of these things. And if as IOSH professionals we can start to understand and get to grips with that, we can talk to business in a way that they understand and they can see the value in what we're doing. And I think this is kind of brand new stuff. You know, we're all kind of still finding our way with this. And I think traditionally, when it comes to human capital, and particularly the pieces that we're very involved in, it's very much, I mean, I was in a meeting recently where somebody said, well, if we do this, what's our return on investment?
Yeah, that's a usual question.
It is. And I think in this pathway, there is a return on investment. But I was in another meeting where we were, a group of occupational safety and health professionals talking about this. And we're saying, actually, human capital has a value. Maybe we should start thinking about the value of our human, how do we put that value on it? And by the way, I know that human capital as a phrase, it kind of sticks in a weird way with a lot of IOSH professionals as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that, but I didn't invent the word.
True.
And just to throw something out there, which would be quite interesting for our discussion piece.
I'm sure it is, Louise. Our chat is viral today.
It is going wild already.
Yeah.
It's something like mental health and wellness. So if we were to put mental health and wellness into a similar pathway, I think there are very tangible returns on that we can see.
Indeed.
And my controversial comment is, and I don't know the answer to this, by the way, is do we think that businesses grasped hold of this because they can see those tangible values resulting? So what are the other, questions and problems that we're posing to business, and how can we show them the value of this? So if we can whiz on to the next slide, Sunny. So this is something I talk about a lot. So this is about, moral backbones of business. And we're in an interesting place at the moment where, health is gone right up on that agenda. And if you look at, the driver behind all of this is big finance, whether we like it or not, that drives everything. In your introduction, Jeanette, you talked about my property background. I love big buildings. I adore wandering around big buildings. And so I'm quite close to how some of that investment has worked. So, whether we like it or not, our personal pensions are invested at a high level. And, these fund managers decide, and, that's kind of how the world goes around to a certain extent. And if you think about, these large, huge skyscrapers that we have, in many cases, it's our personal pension funds that own those large buildings. But then that kind of filters all the way through the supply chain. So you've got people that are responsible for maintenance and repair of those buildings, and then they've got workers. And so you can see how the sphere of influence flows through. So thinking about this, and thinking about the people that handle those big funds, where it all starts, if you like, what we're finding is that ethical funds are actually doing much better at the moment than other funds. So what this means is that the larger investors are actually looking at how organizations are managing themselves through this pandemic, and they're looking at the environmental, social and governance funds much more closely than they ever have done, because those are the organizations that are faring the best through this crisis. So this is why, what we do is under a spotlight like never before. And so, something, reporting matters. So again, this is where an occupational safety and health professional comes in, is how we report on this. So
I think we'll have more questions about that today.
Yeah, so it'd be great to talk about that. So thinking about that, there is an organization, this is being examined very closely at the moment. There's an organization called the Sustainability Accounting Standards Boards, or SASB for short, and that's an independent non-profit organization which sets standards to guide the disclosure of material sustainability information by companies and their investors. And some of this stuff that we work on and the human capital piece is under much, much closer scrutiny. They're asking so many more questions than they used to be. And they've identified the ESGs as being the most relevant issues in 77 different industries. So that is going to drive a much closer scrutiny of these kind of ethical values, which is around everything that we do than ever before. So if we can switch to the next slide, Sunny. So, what is it that we need to do? What is it, bearing all of this in mind and where we're going, what does that mean for the future IOSH professional? It'd be great to open the floor and have a discussion about reporting. I am lucky enough in my career to deal with the whole range, from board to shop floor, from large organizations to small organizations. And quite often when I start working for organizations, I find that the board is not really receiving a true image of exactly what's going on within their organization. It's usually much more positive than it actually is. A role that we play is in making sure that, as well as those lagging indicators that we're reporting on, we've got really clear reporting on leading indicators as well. So we've got a really important role to play in presenting a true image of that organisation.
Louise, I get messages from Sony saying that our chat is so wild.
So making sure that we've really got that, and making sure that we're seen as a net. Can you see? Hopefully this story shows you how we can be an enabler for business success by focusing in that way. So if we, and also as customers within that supply chain, if we're buying cheap, what is the cost elsewhere in that supply chain, which is another interesting thing to talk about. And I don't know if Vince is on the line, but I know Vince loves these, and I put something in you, Vince. So we know that, we still have 380,000 lives lost around the world from fatal accidents. And Vince, to answer your question before you've asked it, if we can change the narrative around all of this, we can start to bring that number down in the other direction. It very much is about risk-based principles, us being seen as enablers. It's us understanding that there are fixed parameters around what we do, things that can't move. If the fire alarm goes off, we've all got to evacuate. But there's an awful lot within what we can do where we can encourage creativity. And then it really does become this enabler for success. And we can have far-reaching social impacts in respect of what we do. But it means that we've got to change the way that we do it. So we've got to move from this black and white, and we've got to thrive in the area of grey. And I don't call these soft skills, by the way, that we need. They're power skills as far as I'm concerned. And if we just go to the last slide, Sunny, I love this. I if anybody follows me on Twitter,
I've seen it. It's
I actually tweeted this image and it went completely viral. And I love this. We're talking about health and safety professionals being the leaders, and it just kind of sums it all up in one go. And I love comparing all of these things to what we do as health and safety professionals. for me, if you think about ergonomics, which we all deal with, in ergonomics, we think about how we can fit the work to the person. We don't alter the person to fit the work. And that's what I love about all of this, is this is about us working in harmony with the businesses that we're influencing and understanding where all of those capitals come in and the role that we have to play. So I hope that's kind of the
story. Thank you, Louise, for this short but I think quite complex introduction to human capital. And I like how you look at the human capital and sustainability from the wider perspective, bringing in occupational health and safety. I know that our chat is very wild and we have so many questions, and we will bring all your questions and we will try to answer all your questions. But before we move on, I would like to ask Jorge, Tanner, do you have any questions for Louise? Do you want to join the conversation?
Or comments or discussion?
Okay,
Yes.
Louise, very nice presentation. Congratulations. This is very, very important. All the things that you cover in that one. But let me ask you something. How do you make a correlation between these elements and the ethics? And the ethics of the people and the ethics of the organization. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah.
And Louise, before you start answering that question, I think we have similar question on the chat today. Exactly the same question about ethics and morale. So well done, Jorge. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Actually, what would be really helpful is, Sunny, can you go back to the 4th slide that's got the definition of human capital and those it was the back. Yeah, that one. Stop. Back. Yeah, this one. So for me, human capital, morality, and ethics for me are at the heart of this. So if we think about human capital as, where we've got high value human capital is where we've got an engaged workforce, where we've got a really positive culture, and where we have these ethics. And so for me, it's kind of ethics for me is definitely, it's part of social capital as well. And it comes into all of these pieces. So I think that's where ethics kind of sits. And in order for us to really understand this, for me, it's people are the solution to all of this. So they're going to be the ones who drive all of this. They're going to be, it's people that actually make the difference in every organization that they're in. So this is tied in with that loyalty piece. I could have added ethics probably to this slide, but for me, very much that's where this piece fits in, and that's tied in with culture as well. I don't know whether it was on this show or something else that I was on, and we were talking about positive cultures within organizations, and you can't have a strong health and safety culture without having a positive general culture within your organization. And if we don't have high ethical values, we're just going to, discharge our obligations to a different part of the world potentially. And what we do has an impact. If we've shown, if anything's become evident at the moment, it's just how connected we all are globally, no matter what size of organization you're in.
And I think today more than ever before, right? And Jorge, I completely like your question, because we cannot call the organization sustainable or successful organization if the workers are not well cared, or the health and safety is not So I think Tanner, so happy to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Any comments?
Yes, actually, Louis, great presentation, and the topic is great. Thank you very much. That one thing that this human capital is important, that as an OHS professional, we all do our activities around people, right? We are developing all the, let's say, initiatives, the campaigns, the other things around people. But one thing that people struggle, I mean, OSH professionals struggle, the OHS department, sometimes seen as a cost center rather than profit center. And one question to Louis, that the quantifying the impact of human capital to OSH performance. I mean, can you just give some insight into this, please?
Yeah, so I'm really fascinated by this. So there is work that has been, I mean, there is work and research that has been done, and for, you know, in large organizations have got the resources to actually finance, you know, and to do research internally to work out how this works. The ILO did some research, and IOSH published a document a couple of years old now, called Human Capital, Healthy Profit, sorry, and they published that, and the ILO showed that for every euro that you spend on health, well-being, and so on, there's a 2.2 euro return on investment, but that tends to be in higher risk organizations. So some of that work has gone on, but we're at the, you know, we're right at the front of this, and this is becoming, you know, driven by the SASBs of this, you know, they're certainly driving this right at this moment in time. And what's going to have to happen, we're going to see a change. And some of it is driven by this pandemic, because investors want to know that their investment is going to be sound. And so what is being shown by that graph where I showed you how the ESGs are performing is that those organizations with high ethical values that are concentrating on this are the more successful companies. So that means that it's going to have a knock-on effect all the way down the chain. But to answer your question, it's not an easy, tangible piece, but there is research going on at the moment to refine that down. Even more so. But the other piece for me is, again, I still go into organizations where, particularly in the boardroom, they're only relying on lagging indicators. So we need to get smart with our board reporting as OSH professionals. And we need to report to the board in ways that they can understand. And if we need to pull them away from purely looking at lagging indicators. I've worked in lots of organizations where, you know, I must have been doing a good job because nothing happened. But when nothing happens, they tend to pull away, you know, and that's the danger, isn't it? So we have to get good at leading indicators and putting, you know, even putting kind of data and value on it in that way is going to make a difference. And it is going to be driven by these big sectors. They're going to be asking way more questions than they have done in the past, and they're going to expect to see accurate information from companies.
Yes, and bringing those topics into the agenda. But I think I understand where Tanner is coming. It's like, it's the number of incidents sometimes is what matters, unfortunately. I would like to go, thank you, Tanner. I would like to go back to our chat, because I see that Sonny starts putting them. So, consultant safe, hi.
Hi,
so
Graham.
oh, you know, okay, I don't know who is behind consultant safe. So where does corporate moral capital come in? The chase of, I think that's the question that was partially also answered, asked by Jorge. Louise, that's the question for you, I guess.
Yeah, so I think I kind of answered the question.
Yeah, answer that question.
But in terms of, so what Graham's saying is shareholder value takes a lead over human capital. So wow, we're getting into, I knew this would happen. Well,
I agree. You partially answered that, but I think it's important to repeat that it's we are not able to talk about any sustainable, successful organization without bringing that positive impact on the bottom line.
Yeah, and also I think what Graham's talking about here is that shareholders can have a very now view of this.
Shareholders.
But again, this is why we're in a really important time for our profession. We've all been talking about how our profession's under a spotlight at the moment, and because suddenly health has been shoved up the agenda in a way that it's never done before. But when you start looking at it in terms of capitals and finance, you can actually see the graphs on it. So to answer the question, this is a cultural piece as well, is that shareholders want a now return on their investment. But this is going to be driven by, investors. My hope and prayer is that they're going to start to take a much more longer term. They're going to consider this in a much more longer term piece. Which is actually what organizations and companies are required to do. So if you're a director of a company and you have certain obligations in terms of the longer term planning of that organization, and that's where this fits in as well. So we can't control individual shareholders, but some of what's going on right now should mean that there is that change. That's my personal hope.
Yeah, Louise, and I think there are some changes with regards to how we measure and these indicator approaches, and that will bring more tangible values and something that will benchmark, and the shareholders, they will be more prone and maybe triggered. There is another question, Barbara Makowska. There is still silos thinking, I think. HR is about human capital. OSH is more technical safety thing. Finance department is around capital. I agree. Isn't it like the question about how we bring OSH professionals talking more into the conversation, and maybe the role of OSH in the human capital and sustainability from the wider perspective?
Barbara, I love that question. That is a really great question. And for me, this is, one of my last slides is, what is it that we should be doing as OSH professionals? Where are we going? And we can, we should see ourselves as facilitators. I strongly believe this. We can be really strong facilitators with those right power skills. And I have a real thing about silos. I hate silos. And that's where our skills of collaboration come to the fore. And if, as OSH professionals, I think we're in a really great place if we've got the right kind of skills behind us to help facilitate breaking down those silos and bringing people together. Because when people come together with a shared aim and objective, incredible things can happen. And so we all need to work closer. And I think over this time, I don't know about anybody here on the call, but I've definitely worked with HR professionals more than I have. I've worked with finance people more than I have before. So I think we have, we're starting to see that. And I guess,
connecting dots.
Yeah, how do we hold on to it as we start to come out of this? Because what we don't want to happen as a profession is to go back to where we were before. We want to learn from this and grasp hold of some of these concepts to push us forward.
By the way, Barbara Makowska, appreciate that and says thank you. Yeah, we need holistic approach. Absolutely agree. By the way, Jorge Tanner, feel free to jump in and join the discussion, guys. Another question from Graham. Does not the value of human life
testing me here today.
based on culture rather than operational cost across the world? I like that. Again, the value of human life.
So I'm really interested in this as well, is that we can have organizations within the developed world that are offsetting their risks to another part of the world where there's there's fewer legislative standards. So this is where, and that tends to be the bigger corporations, and those bigger corporations are the ones that are going to come under much greater focus going forward, without a shadow of a doubt. So this is where, I don't know if Vince is on the line, but this is where Vince, and I feel this could have a direct impact on those kind of numbers, because as you know, the ethical that, you know, those ESGs become more and more important, and the SASBs of this world are pushing reporting in terms of investment, we're going to see that those large corporations have got to report on how they're managing their supply chains, and their supply chains are going to come under much closer scrutiny, because if we're reducing our risk within a developed nation and, you know, cutting costs in a developing nation, which leads to, you know, environmental impacts, health and safety issues, and so on, that's going to be much more visible than it was before. And I mean, the other part of this is that companies don't like reputational risk. And there's nothing that can affect reputational risk more greatly than, you know, a big incident in another part of the world.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Louise. It's about connecting and interlinking all the values, and
yeah,
at the end of the day, yeah,
we all know how connected we are now. We can feel it. Because this pandemic has affected large organizations as well as small organizations, and these supply chains, you know, we're interlinked in a way that we can see it now. We always were interlinked, but I think we can see it more clearly now.
I'm just saying hi to Malcolm. Mal is our member of the stream team. Hi, Mal.
Hi,
Malcolm.
During interview stages, a lot of companies use BBI techniques trying to find the ideal candidate. How would candidates of a shy disposition overcome this barrier? I think it's coming back to the talent, skills that we have within our organizations.
Yeah, so another aspect that you will find me talking on quite a lot is around inclusion, equality and diversity. And part of having these power skills is, you know, I talked within the presentation about how there's some very fixed things in health and safety, but if we're managing risk in the right way, which we should be right now, I think people are talking about risk-based principles much more than ever. Those things are not fixed, and we need to be creating new ways of working. We're in a different world, and we're not going to go back to where we were before. And true diversity means that we have a real mix of people. And sometimes it's the shy people and the people that don't say very much that are in the background, and their minds are whirring, and they could come up with something that could change the way that an organization is worked, that could be massively powerful. So part of human capital and investing in our people is working with every type of person. You know, that's why diversity of thought is so massively important, and it's exactly what our sector needs right now, because we need to look for innovative, creative, new ways of working. So we need to work with our HR colleagues to pull out those people to find out where they fit within our organisations, because everybody's important.
Yeah,
it's the passion that we need.
Include everyone into conversation. Mal says that return on investment can only be realized if the right candidates are in the role.
Absolutely.
And not only the right, I think motivated, the candidates that will invest, train, skill, talent, it all comes in one basket. Invest in our people.
So organizations that are investing in their capital are investing in their people. So if people have got strengths, then we we put them into positions that use those strengths. But I'm really interested in how we look at the value that we have rather than the return on investment, which is so hard. It's going to be super hard to work out. But what is the value that we bring? You know, just like if you are a business and you have an office building that you own, that is a tangible value. It's an asset for your organization. So your people are a similar asset. And the role that we play as IOSH professionals to, you know, in terms of that piece of human capital is massively important.
I really hope, Louise, that I think the changes already are happening. We are talking about that. I hope that it's not going to be only about ROI investments values from the monetary point of view, but also from Tanner. I thought you wanted to add something.
I would like to add something into this as a person who is conducting a lot of job interviews. And this VBI interviews, actually, I'm not very supporting this kind of. I mean, I don't think that is a good question to ask a person that what is your, weaknesses. And sometimes, people do very well in the interviews, but when they come into organization, they are not performing well. And some of the shy people that I hired before, and they are, the most, good achievers and best performers in the team. One of my managers told me, a while ago that he is focusing and he's trying to catch the people when they are doing the right thing. Okay, he never focus on the wrong things that the people are doing in the organization, and that was affected me too much. Just wanted to add this into the subject.
That's why I'm so happy, Tanner, when you join the show, because it's always, I agree that, but there's standardized questions, right, Tanner? What are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? But I think Louise mentioned last show that it's about POSH and being positive and trying.
Yes, definitely.
I'm a huge advocate for this. So it's thinking about your language that you're using. So, and we can. For me, I think human capital is a game changer for us potentially, because it's showing that it's showing the value that we bring to an organization. So it shows that we are enablers for that organization. So we're bringing value. We're bringing true value to that organization through people first. And language is really important. So I think traditionally, as inspectors with a clipboard, we're saying, right, you haven't done that, you haven't done that, you haven't done that. And how often do we actually say, do you know what, you've done an amazing job with this, what a great idea. And I've got something that I know Jimmy, who's current IOSH president, teases me for this, but I'll always say, start from a position of yes, and there's always a safe way to do things, and I think that's where our value can shine through as well.
Thank you for telling this, guys. It's all the time. Positive reinforcement is one of the enabler of behavioral change. Tanner, you have some friends on the chat. They say hi from Turkey.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah.
And they're saying that you are a very nice manager and kind HSC manager. Nice to see you. Greetings from Turkey. Thanks for the nice online meetings. Also, Tanner, Mal thanks you for your comment, and he's fully agree with you. Jorge, what about you?
Luis, well, the COVID is something that we need to talk in this show, of course. The people of health and safety issues, we know that we need to change our mind, because we need to cover that one in our people, in our workers. But what about the new candidates for the other areas? I am talking about maintenance, and I am talking about production, and all of the people who is involved on the process directly. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the new people who is coming to our organization and the people who is working now, Do they need to change something in his mind? And I am referring to that we as a staff of the organization, we need to return our head and see, okay, this people is here. I know he's a good worker, but this one, the COVID and the pandemic, needs to change something in them, because we don't know exactly with the real tests how it happened in their minds. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, this comes back to how do we encourage those that actually own the risk, because they're, you know, at the sharp end? How do we encourage them to make wise risk-based choices? And wise risk-based choices not only for themselves, but for the person that's working beside them. And, you know, the higher up the food chain you are, the more your influence becomes. So we actually need people to make those wise risk-based choices. And for me, that is cultural. I think if you are working within a supportive organization that's open and transparent, and it's got all of those capitals in healthy balance, it's a sustainable organization. I do believe that filters through the workforce. I mean, I've got an organization, they're an SME, quite a big SME, but, you know, I was talking to one of the directors yesterday, and you know, we were saying, you know, we've got to a place where people are really open. They feel comfortable to be open about their environments and to talk to each other about the things that are good and the things that are bad and the things that they need. And I think it's having that cycle of support. And if we can nurture and encourage that, I think we'll have people, you know, people will start to make those wise choices, but it's cultural, and that comes from the leadership at the top of the organization. If they don't feel this is important, and they don't, it's about putting heart into what we do, isn't it? See you later, Graham.
Hi, Graham. Thank you so
It's
much.
about putting heart into what we do, and if people feel that they're valued, they will value the organization back. I strongly believe.
Louise, I think it's about your last slide, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is about his last slide, and I think it's about leadership and culture. Jorge, very interesting perspective. I like it. Yeah, we have some comments. Excuse me if I if I pronounce it wrong. Raisin Swami, he's asking, by decoding the aspirant's ikigai, one can get better understanding. I think we did discuss the ikigai. He also said that mapping the personality and talents could help in identifying the right candidates.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. Graham, without a yeah, there would be no high-risk brain surgery.
Absolutely right. Yeah, always start from the position of yes and work backwards.
And I think taking from that, we have a comment, matching the brain data than bio data with the job profile could help for sure. Absolutely agree. Sonia agrees. We have another question. I always encourage people to ask about safety during job interviews, and job descriptions at the advertisement stage should include the expectations from the candidates on safety. Absolutely, it's another way of, it's about culture, about standards, roles and responsibilities, and bringing everyone on board if it comes to health and safety.
Yeah, and it can, you know, it can be very hard in parts of the world where there's fewer legislative standards. But I think this is where, again, I keep coming back to that slide with circles on. You've got to have all of those capitals in balance, and that makes for sustainable business. So if we can show business that by investing in this, it's good for them and good for their people and good for the bottom line, that the culture will follow. And I mean, some of the larger organizations that I've seen who know how important this is, they engage with their entire supply chain. So where they have, they influence businesses in parts of the world where there's fewer legislative standards, they will have their own standards that they expect to maintain for their organization. And some of the great, some of the best work I've seen people who actually so I've worked with Malcolm Staves. I'm going to name drop you in here, Malc, in case you're listening or listening to the catch up. Works for L'Oreal, and I was really taken by one of the presentations that he did a couple of years ago, where they pulled in the families of some of their workers in countries with fewer health and safety legislative standards, and they got their kids to talk about how it would feel if their parents didn't come home because they had an accident. And it was it really stuck with me. It was massively powerful. So you get, and that you're also getting the kids involved with talking about it as well. So that's what I mean by we need to start thinking creatively about how we do this, and working differently. And we've got to have a people-centered approach. It's people first.
I just would like to use this opportunity to thank Tarkan for his question and for his comment. And I also saw Louisa. Tarkan, thank you so much. And Louisa, she says, amazing show with amazing people. Thank you for everything. And I think we're slowly coming to the end of the show. And I would like to use this opportunity to thank you, each of you. Maybe final thoughts, Jorge, Tanner, and then I come to Louise to close the show.
Well, thank you very much for all your knowledge, for your presentation, and for the whole ideas and the whole things that you explained this show today. I appreciate very much, and I think that the people will be very, very happy to know what about this issue that is not very, very easy to work with, because when we work with people, all the theories change. It's not the same, and of course the culture is something that we need to deal with in another way today, because this virus, the COVID, learned us that the life is not like we expect to do, and something need to change inside the organization too. And some girl talks about the silos thinking. I think the organization needs to change, and they need to be very, very closely people, because they have one common factor: human. And human factor is something that they need to be prepared to deal with. Thank you, Luis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. Thank you so much. Agree, COVID, and it's going to bring some changes and opportunities. Tanner.
Thank you very much, Janet. Thank you very much, Louise and Jorge. And the why we manage health and safety in our workplaces, starting from moral, legal and financial, right? And the keeping human capital in the organization, lowering the turnover rate is important. So what we do as OHS professionals are helping our organizations to keep the people in the organization. That's the thing what I believe. And when it comes to ikigai, actually, I believe that I found my ikigai thanks to Sony reminding this to me, was fixed. And better to think that when we are managing human capital as an OHS professional, that we should be trying to help, people in the organization to find their ikigai, so they will be doing their best in, which department they will be performing well. So that's the thing. That's the thing that I would like to share with you. Thank you very much. And Yeah, good to see all of
Tanner,
you.
thank you so much. I'm always so happy when you're on the show and your input is so valuable. But I think we all need to blame Sony for having that ikigai, ikigai within us. We have a lot of thanks from Bartolome. I observed that in some areas, I couldn't read that. Oops. So Sony, in some areas of organization, there is no human inside, just business. Coming back to moral, ethical reasons. I would like also to thank Barbara. I think she had a comment. Dominika, if I remember well, from Poland. Thank you so much. Louise, your final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that I've shown you, where, for us, having strong, messaging from us as professionals, thinking about your leading and lagging indicators and your board reporting, and thinking about it in terms, the language of business, which I've tried to sort of impart a little bit today. This makes good business sense. And I think, if this pandemic has shown us anything, we are massively connected. It doesn't matter, what type of organization you're working in, where you are in the world, we are all connected. And, the future is going to look on how we've led at this point in time. So let's make it count.
Thank you so much, Louise, for for coming. I know that you're a very busy person, that you find time. And let me summarize in some final notes. Today we talked about human capital. And today we agreed that we need to look different at the human capital aspect, at the wider perspective of sustainability. Today, I think we agreed that any organization that wants to be successful, they need to consider health and safety, well-being, protecting their workers as a demonstration of their commitment to a sustainable future, to a sustainable tomorrow. I think today we're all globally connected as never before, and talking about IOSH, health and safety, and having that in the human capital agenda is so crucial, so important. Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, Tanner. And last phrase, Louise, I would like to finalize my show with your quote. You said once, engaged teams can achieve extraordinary things, but global teams can change the world. Having one conversation at a time. Thank you for this conversation, Louise. Let's change the world. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Stay connected. Bye. Every Tuesday, every Thursday. Open up your emails, send the emails, and live chat. Every Tuesday, every Thursday. Thank you, everyone. Sony, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed that show. Now, as I mentioned, we have 2 shows a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. The Tuesday show is at 7 p.m. in the evening, and the Thursday show is at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, UK time. If you missed the show, we always upload our recordings to our YouTube channel, Red Risks. Subscribe, and I can also notify you of any upcoming events. One way or another, we will make sure that we keep in touch with you.